Well, pleasant good evening to everybody. John Hendricks here alongside Ross Jackson for another episode of Second and Saints. I feel like we just talked to everybody.
I
We did
know.
yesterday, right?
This is
But
what
we
happens when
obviously,
football
yeah.
returns.
Oh, it's so glorious. Man, I got to tell you, it was just nice. And we put in a long day over at Metairie. A lot of fun stuff that we learned, but appreciate you guys tuning in. And don't forget to like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. But man, Ross, how you doing? How you recovering? It sounds like you got some downtime right now with the missus maybe being away.
Man, no, look, everything's going great, man. It's been fun. Like I was so happy about like football being back and being out there. I showed up in like slacks and a button down in the heat. I
Yeah,
was so excited. I wanted to be formal and be up out there. So, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. How's everything going for you?
it's good, man. Yeah, not like Marcus Robertson and some of those guys are like Coach
They're out
Williams,
there.
man. They're in like sweats and hoodies
Hoodies.
and like. And then we were talking to Joe Woods. He's like, yeah, that's him every day and stuff, for Marcus Robinson. I'm like, I don't know how y'all do it. I mean, it
I'm
felt
pretty
good this
sure.
morning, but
Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure
don't know.
Keith Williams even had the hood up
Yeah.
for like a good portion of it. Like that's different right there.
Yeah, I know. Hey, look, and then it's not like they're gonna have to brave too much of the Louisiana heat because they're gonna be moving to
Right.
California so for
Yep.
training camp. So, but look, I guess let's see. Maybe before we get into rookie minicamp, because that's going to be the meat and potatoes of what we talk
Hmm.
about. But we did hear about the renovations going on at the facility. I do want to kind of start there and just kind of break a few things down because man, they've done a lot to the practice facility, and obviously this is a big reason why they're not having training camp out there in Metairie. And for those who thought it was because of a cafeteria score. It wasn't. This is something that they started planning back in 2019, but they
Hmm.
pumped $12 million in it. They obviously finished up with the workout room, added some nutrition stuff, and like the kitchen's going to go from 1,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet, and the actual makeup of the whole building is going to go 14,000 square foot cafeteria over there instead of being 6,000. So that's just some of the many things that they're doing. But obviously, they're hoping to be done by November. But Dennis Lauscha said maybe by September. But man, just kind of talk a little bit about what you saw. I mean, there was some really cool stuff that they have brewing over there for the players and stuff.
Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, you mentioned the 14, going from 6,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet when it comes to cafeteria. Part of that is also quadrupling the kitchen size in particular. The kitchen in there was only 1,000 square foot. Now it's going up to 4,000 square foot. They're adding, pizza grills. They're adding,
Wood fire
pizza
grill.
ovens. Yeah, wood fire grills and pizza ovens and all this stuff. Like it's insane. So it's gonna be really cool. I'm excited for that, for the players, for the staff, for everybody that's going to be there. I think the other thing that's really cool is like they're adding a second story to the calf that also has like a viewing area into the indoor facility, which would be cool for events and all that. So they're doing some really cool stuff. And that's all before we even get to like the waiting room, which was done about a month ago, and all that other stuff, like which we got to walk through. That was insane.
Yeah, and we were there for the HBCU combine. It looked weird because all the workout equipment was on the field, where everybody's
Right.
practicing. So that was kind of a little bit off. But yeah, I think the viewing area is pretty cool. And one of the things they said is like, they have a like this technology where they could tint the windows and to
Hmm.
where like if they don't want
Oh
people to see
yeah, that's really
practice, they
cool.
could do that. But like there's just some cool things coming. And as far as OTAs and minicamp, it doesn't sound like they're gonna have it over at the facility in Metairie, but they do want to stay local. So we
Yeah.
don't know what those venues are going to be like or where that's going to be, but that's something to keep an eye out on for sure. And so let's see, we got some people rolling in. Yeah, it's going to look good. I know for sure. They should have some renderings and all that fun stuff. And so what we got to see was pretty nice and all that good stuff. But Saints rookie mini camp, it's just a second day. There's a lot of stuff though that we learned from rookie mini camp. If you haven't checked it out, go to Saints News Network. Ross put up some phenomenal observations. I put up my observations as well. And so if you want to know kind
Also
of what went
phenomenal.
down, thank you, appreciate it. If you want to know kind of what went down, it doesn't seem like a lot because there's only such a small window, but man, there's so much to learn. There's so much to watch and so much to pay attention to. And, I feel like we got a lot of information out of there,
Yeah.
but kind of start off. Um, Clint Kubiak. I think that was probably one of the biggest points from today. Maybe just some of your impressions. What do you saw from him, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, look, when you watch his interviews and stuff like that, he's not the loudest guy. He's not the most boisterous personality or anything like that. And so I think that maybe the thing I was concerned about with that was that maybe there would be some unfair sort of, conclusions drawn from that, that he's not, loud on the field or whatever that might be. But I think, John, what we saw from Clint Kubiak was a very active, very vocal coach that was constantly communicating. He was while the quarterbacks were kind of running their individual drills before they started throwing the football to actual receivers or pass catchers and stuff like that. He was over there along with quarterback coach Andrew Janocko, kind of giving some instruction, giving play calls to work on the play calling cadence for each of the two quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler, as well as Kellen Mond, who they brought back in on a tryout basis so that they would basically have a second arm with Derek Carr, Nathan Peterman, and Jake Haener not present. I really think that what we saw from Clint Kubiak, I thought was really exciting because it's a little bit different than what we're accustomed to seeing. Like, I can't think of a time to where I heard Pete Carmichael's voice while I was standing on the sideline, like watching a practice, just being completely honest. And so I loved hearing like Clint Kubiak consistently giving those corrections, making those play calls, giving, hey, do this, do that, like giving the adjustments. That's what I'm looking for, all those other things. And it was just like, I think one of the other things that was so interesting to watch about him is that like he just didn't miss any details. Like he had something at all times prepared for the players that he was working with, the coaches that he was working with, all that. I thought that was really, really encouraging to see. I'm curious and interested to see what that looks like in season, if that changes or anything like that. Like, was it just the early excitement or whatever? But if he maintains that, I think that changes a lot the way that the Saints practice goes. And I know you pointed out tempo being a big thing that we saw really pick up too.
Yeah, look, it was a smooth transition. The tempo of it, like it's just not what we're used to. And again, that's not a shot at Pete Carmichael by any means, but you could just see, and you saw it from a lot of the coaches. And I get it; it's rookies and all this other stuff. There's a lot of authoritative, voices out there. Marcus Robertson, obviously, he's going to get after it.
You could
But
hear him
Coach
from
Williams,
the other side of the opposite field. You could
exactly. But like Keith Williams, their new wide receivers coach, man, you just see it in such a small sample size that they brought him in because they wanted somebody more like what Curtis Johnson was, and you could see how tough he is, but also at the same time he gives kind of like some love to his receivers. And so I think it's a good sign, and like this entire offensive staff is really gonna to bring some things together, and it's just an element it's different, right? It's new, it's exciting. And so I think we're excited about it too. But again, the tempo, the way they were going through the drills, like, I mean, there was no like catch up. I mean, they were ahead of schedule because they time all these drills. They were on schedule, they're ahead of schedule. So it was really, really just a smooth process is really my main takeaway from it. And look, Clint Kubiak's I don't want to say a man of few words, but we talked to Joe Woods and he kind of gave us a little bit of insight on Clint, and saying that his dad, Gary, obviously hired him, back in the day, and that he's worked with Clint in the past. And obviously that's something that, he was talking and telling us about. They were at the facility until 1 a.m. one night. And so I think he speaks volumes about the type of guy that he's going to be. And of course, he's not going to tell all the trade secrets of what this team's going to do and all this other stuff. But, again, what Joe Wood said was he's not too high, he's not too low. You know what I mean? Is how he goes. And I think that's the best way to describe a Clint Kubiak. But it wasn't just him. I thought Andrew Janocko was doing a fantastic job with what he was doing with the quarterbacks. And obviously,
precision, man.
Yeah, precision. It's just that's the thing. It's like accuracy and precision and smooth tempo, all that fun stuff. And so, again, I loved seeing that, and it doesn't seem like you'd see much out of it, of a rookie minicamp for a couple hours, maybe, of practice, if that. But Spencer Rattler, I mean, look, it's good first impressions. I mean, we talked about it on this show yesterday. I was telling you about Jake Haener, how he made good first impressions on me too. But Rattler's kind of the same. Just talk about Rattler, kind of what he did, what you kind of saw from him, and really, I think fans are pretty excited. I mean, they got excited because he took his helmet and put his
That
helmet
was
on,
so funny. Yeah.
I mean,
I know. I
it's
just
like
love
it's
I
like
love the
Baywatch or
ignition.
Fabio or something. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. No, it's reason to be
Yeah.
excited for sure. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, no, I enjoyed what we got to see from Spencer Rattler, and I think what a lot of people will counter some of that stuff with is, well, it's a vanilla defense, and it's not, they're going up against guys that might not make rosters and everything like that. But like, you can look at a player and evaluate some of the things that they do that's not at all dependent upon what the players opposite them are doing. So if a receiver can catch passes and can catch well and that runs good routes and all these other things, that's independent of what the defense around him is doing. It's great to see them be able to do that with a defense in their face and all these other things. Absolutely. And I think that you see the same thing with a quarterback and with Spencer Rattler. And the thing that my qualities that I saw from Spencer Rattler that I liked that aren't at all dependent upon the players that are trying to stop him from completing passes was that you saw them continuously working on his footwork. That's one of those things that he's got to develop, that he's, it's one of those things where anytime you ask, okay, where's the growth area? A lot of people talk about his footwork. His footwork on the move is typically good. It's just about getting like his footwork down from dropbacks and stuff like that. His throwing mechanics are really, really good. The same. His throws look the exact same every single time. I thought that was something that stood out to me. The other thing was decision making, right? We did get a little bit of offense versus defense, which I was not anticipating seeing,
I
if I'm
wasn't
being
either.
honest. Yeah, I
wasn't either.
didn't think we were going to see it then, but they let us see it, and that was awesome. And you could see times to where he had like kind of a 3-level concept with a post route down the field, typically Bub Means out of Pittsburgh. You had a crossing route coming from the opposite side of the field to the intermediate area, and then he had an outlet over the middle in the short area. And you would see him make the right decision. And one of the things that I really liked is that they were doing this drill before they started doing the the team drills, to where Kellen Mond and Spencer Rattler would drop back, and there were coaches standing at landmarks, basically. And Andrew Janoko would shout out what the coverage was. It's too high. It's 4 under. It's whatever. And based on the coverage, they had to throw the ball to the right read, basically was the idea. And you could see that immediately translate into the team drills. And that's how you install an offense, right? Like you spend one day and you try to install like this list of plays, and these are the different ways that you do it. You just do the play calling. You just do the dropbacks. You just do the throwing to a landmark. You just do the pretending like there's a coverage there. Then you do routes on air. Then you go into 7-on-7. Then you go into team drills. Like it's not a simple process at all. Like it's so much. And to see his decision making was something that I thought was really, really impressive, because to me, that's not dependent upon a defense. You can either make good decisions or you can't. And it felt like he consistently made good decisions.
Yeah, you could see him go through those progressions. And of course, we charted him. So he went 11 of 12. And of course, there's sevens and there's teams. But you saw it, like you were mentioning the footwork. He was doing a lot of play action rollout. I mean, this is somebody that was really working, having to make some adjustments on his body. And look, this is a day 2. This is Rattler, but I just liked what I saw from the small sample size. And so, again, it doesn't mean he's going to be the starting quarterback right now. Everybody's got to temper their expectations, but it is exciting. But I think his first impressions were just that they are working with him. They think he's extremely smart, intelligent about being able to do these things that they're going to ask him to do. And, look, he's going to be plenty hard on himself too. And so I'm interested to see how quickly he picks things up, as opposed to maybe a Jake Haener, and if he challenges Haener, because I think it's going to come down to more of the preseason. And so based off of that, I feel pretty good about that. But, with Rattler, it bodes well for him, just the first sample size, because if he would have came out slow, sluggish out of the gate, maybe been like, maybe it wasn't the time. But the fact that he did come out strong, I mean, he made that one pass. I think my play of the day was when he hit, Bub Means over the middle. And something you pointed out too, how much they attack the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
We're not used to seeing the Saints do that. And so I say that because in practice, and you had the stat, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, but, just how bad were the Saints attacking the middle of the field last year?
Yeah, Derek Carr, just Derek Carr alone, leaving out all the Jameis Winston reps and stuff like that we saw in a couple of second halves. But Derek Carr alone was 21st in the NFL when it came to targeting the middle of the field between 19 and 10 yards. And we saw some of the best plays today in the middle of the field, 10 to 19 yards. Like that's where that felt like that was. And what that's telling you is, and again, people will hear that, and we have to make sure that we mention, like, listen, it's a vanilla defense, all those other things. But what it tells you is that the offense is being designed to attack those areas of the field. That's what they're working on. They're working to attack those areas of the field. And I thought that was really good. I think there were only a couple of times where I ever saw them go outside. And when I saw them go outside, the numbers were outside the hash marks. It was typically a check down to the running back, or it was Kellen Mond through one out route that went to that side, if I remember correctly. And so it went to the left side for sure. I'm pretty sure it was an out route. And so I think that, like, when you look at it, that's something that is really, really intriguing and just gives you an idea, again, regardless of how good X number of players are or anything like that. Like, that's the scheme. The scheme is going to attack the middle of the field. And you could see the timing there. I loved hearing Bub Means after he caught that pass. He kind of looked back at the corner that was covering him. He was like, "You've been sitting on that all day." Like, it was just like those types of like challenges from player to player and all those other things. Like, I love seeing and hearing all that on the field today too.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Bub Means too. We'll get into much, but I don't want to lose some of these questions too. And it kind of segues into what we probably want to talk about next. Fuaga, Taliesin Fuaga working at left tackle. Let's talk about why. And then obviously they're asking about Ryan Ramczyk, which I don't think that's going to be anything that's going to change dramatically. Again, it still doesn't look good for Ryan Ramczyk, but Dennis Allen is saying that they're going to work Taliesin Fuaga at left tackle to see how he does, because they know he can play right tackle, right? And so he was interviewing you saying, he's just got to knock a little bit off the rust off and stuff. And he was primarily there starting at left tackle, and Kyle Hergel was right alongside him at left guard, which kind of interesting. We talked about him a little bit the other day and have talked about him before. And so, Fuaga, are we reading too much into him playing left tackle, first of all? And second of all, again, should we try to expect Ryan Ramczyk? I don't think so, but your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's more information gathering. These are 3 days where you get the opportunity to put players literally wherever you want, because there's no veteran there that holds down that spot or that needs to get the reps at that spot. This is an opportunity for you to find out, do you have some versatility in your top investment in this year's draft class? I would still, at this point, we'll see if I'm wrong, but I would still at this point expect to see Taliesin Fuaga in the running to start at right tackle, and more than likely starting at right tackle, because we're not leaning towards the idea of Ryan Ramczyk being at least ready to start the season, if playing at all. And so I think that when you see what why they were moving Taliesin Fuaga over to left tackle, it just gives you an opportunity. Could his future be there at left tackle? Can he play the position? If he plays the position really, really well, then do they feel that if Trevor Penning goes down with an injury, that maybe they can move Fuaga over there and then go to a backup right tackle that they feel better than, or they feel better about than they feel about whoever would be the natural backup left tackle, things like that. Like, I think it's just information gathering. You want to find out all the places where your players can play. And I think you're going to see that here in rookie mini camps. You're going to hear about it in vet mini camps. You're going to see it in OTAs. You're probably going to see a little bit of it in training camp too. But I think all in all, like, Taliesin Fuaga is probably your starting right tackle. This is just an opportunity to find out what else he can do.
Yeah, this is also not new information, because Dennis Allen said that he was going to play both tackle positions. They were going to put him on the left side too. It's just, I get it that the optics, you're like, oh, well, what does that mean? And of course, it's a fair question, but they didn't really want to see him as a guard. They didn't see him as a guard. They wanted to get him some work at left tackle. And this is the Saints MO. They do cross train at all positions. Like a guy like Landon Young had worked on left tackle. He works at right tackle. He can play inside too. I mean, there's just different things. Like, it's a rarity to see an offensive line go the full distance of 17 games. And the Saints just don't have that luxury for sure. And so I think that, you do want to find out, because that is a situation where, if Penning went down, he kicks out the left tackle, Landon goes at right tackle. That would make sense, So I think you're going to see more of that. And of course, we said this yesterday on our pod that nothing's really going to matter until you get into training camp when you start
Right.
getting actual hitting pads, all that fun stuff too. So it's nice, it's cool, but we'll know more about it once we get into actual training camp. So,
Yep.
um, good question here. Do you think we'll see some new stuff in this offense? Yes,
Yes.
is the easy question. Needs some excitement, but even just looking at what they were doing today, a lot of
Yep.
outside zone runs, all the things like that wide zone, all those different things that you're used to seeing out of a potential offense. And one of the other things I will say, just with what Clint Kubiak said, is because the questions were asked about Alvin
Hmm.
and Taysom. We've
Hmm.
been saying they're going to be parts of the offense, but it sounds like Alvin's really excited about this offense, and I think Taysom's been a sponge too. But I think the bottom line is yes, you should be excited because I think it's going to bring a new element to the offense. And is it going to be like the greatest show on turf? I don't think so. But is it going to be
Right.
better than what we've seen the past couple of years? I hope so.
Yeah. I would say we saw new stuff today. Would that be inappropriate to say, John? Like
No, I
that
don't think
feels
so.
right. Like
Yeah,
the outside
yeah,
zone runs, like you mentioned, and then we talked about Spencer Rattler with the play action bootlegs and things like that, or the play action rollouts. Like that's specifically a type of play action that you typically run with an outside zone or a stretch run, play fake and everything, to where you like get the play flow over to the right side. You kind of have a sprint out to the right side, you fake the handoff and then you roll back over your outside shoulder, getting back to the outside, to the opposite side of that play. And then all of a sudden you're on the left side of the field with a 3-level route concept to throw to. And we saw, guys like Jermaine Jackson, catch a reception there. We saw Bub Means, another one of those connections came from that side, all of that. So I think we saw some motion already in the offense before pre-snap as well. So I think that those were all things that we could look at and say, yeah, that gives you a pretty good indication that our expectation of seeing something new in this offense will very likely be reality.
yeah. And this is a good point. Everybody's learning this new system where it's going to
Hmm.
take some adjustment. I agree there too. Um, you know, I want to detour a little bit too because it's hard not to. But this it says Bub Means try not to make everyone smile challenge. It's impossible. Man, I tell you, he caught all 4 of his targets today. But man, when I tell you the most enthusiastic person in the locker room is going to probably be him, like it's probably not even close. Like this dude is like he's got a smile on his face all the time. I just don't think he has a bad day, but man, he's going to be somebody that people are going to really start rooting for. And man, he's got a lot of awesome things to say. He's really smart. You talked and caught up with him a little bit too off the side. And so, man, Bub Means, talk about him a little bit and, just kind of what your impressions were of him today.
Yeah, man, what a good dude. Like the thing I always say about him and Josiah Aziram is that like there is no one more excited about anything in life right now than Josiah Aziram was excited to be selected, right? And what I told Bub Means today is there's no one in this world, anywhere, in any room that's more excited to be in that room than you are excited to be in this locker room. And he said, that's facts. That's 100% facts and everything. And he like
Yes.
loved that. And you could see it. I mean, you asked, at one point I asked him about, adjusting to the offense and how he feels that things are going. Oh no, no. So my bad. I asked him about Keith Williams. I asked him about Coach Dub, and he just lit up. He just got so excited. He's Coach Dub. That's my dog. Like he was just so excited to talk
Yeah.
about him. Seth Lewis from over at WWL TV asked him about Spencer Rattler, and he like lit up. Like he's one of them ones. No cap is what he was saying. Like he was just having so much fun. Like it was just clear that it's clear that this dude was where he belongs to be. And look, he looked good on the field too. 6'1", 212 pounds. He stood out with his physique out there on the field. He was an outside receiver for the most part with some field stretching responsibilities, good hands catcher, ran routes well, always seemed to find kind of the open area of the field. I talked about him coming back to that corner and being like, you've been sitting on that all day. You know what I mean? All those other things. Like he knows his stuff. And he looked really good. And but as you highlighted, like beyond what he did on the field, like my goodness, what a just blast of a dude. Like he's going to be such a staple presence of the Saints social media, or he should be a staple presence of their social media plan moving forward because he is just gold, man.
I mean, he's in the locker room trying to get all the social media videos done. You know what I'm
Yep,
saying?
he
Like
was
he's
out there
interviewing the players.
asking questions. Yeah, interviewing players and everything, making
Oh
out him running
man.
around with the camera. Like it's such a good move. It's so
Yeah.
smart because he's such a just a bright guy. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to a lot of these guys who are just happy to be here. You know, catching up with a lot of the guys that we talked over on Zoom, interviewing, just introducing and stuff. And you can
Mhm.
just see it. Like, some of the players I talked to, he's like, "This is the best experience I've ever had." And college was great. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just really cool to see that and happen and stuff. And they tried out a bunch of people. We didn't really talk about attendance. We'll talk about that in a second too.
Yeah.
I want to get to this question too. This is a good one. Are we underestimating the Saints' willingness to try and find young talent? Everybody wants to plug and play vet, but I think they want to find younger talent at some of these positions. I think we're not speaking of you, but we talked about the importance of getting a little bit younger at some
Mhm.
positions. And so I think that is a goal because some of the veterans that they have now, and we just talked about it, not keeping Andres Pete, not
Yep.
and with James Hurst retiring, your offensive line gets so much younger now, right? And
And it might
so
get even
you
younger if
look at
Ramczyk retires or whatever happens with him, right?
yeah, that's a big one too. And so you look at that, and again, we talked about the Tyron, Demario, and Cam Jordan for the next 2 years, and then
Mhm.
I think for the most part, yeah, I think this roster probably does want to get a little bit younger, and I don't think that's a mystery. I think that's something that they've said, and obviously want to balance it out with veterans and some guys that can help lead the next generation and stuff. But again, young players, give them an opportunity. I think the sky's the limit, and I really like what they had in their draft class. And if they can hit on this draft class and some of these undrafted free agents, then the future does look bright.
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference for them. I think in some cases the idea here with like the veterans is, trying to plug holes for immediate starters where you feel like there are holes, but there's a very, very much a value in getting younger across the roster. Like that's absolutely a thing that you're looking to do. Includes in very clearly something that the Saints are looking to do as well. Like you look at the who was it? I want to say it was the Chargers or maybe the Colts. There was a team that usually has these huge um undrafted free agent classes. This year only brought in seven. Only brought in
Mm,
seven, whichever team that was. I want to say it was the Colts. But the Saints still brought in 15 and then had, a total of 60 players out there today, including the tryout roster and the drafted guys and the undrafted guys and all that. Like, yeah, they very much are looking at the opportunity to get younger there. And I think it's a wise move.
for
Build
sure.
for your future.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to. I mean, you got to look that way. And of course, you're building your practice squad out too. Of course, that's
Hmm.
that's some young guys. That was the only problem is some of the reserve future. Like, I mean, I like Shaq Davis. I was surprised that they didn't hold on to Shaq.
Yeah.
And he went to Philly and stuff. And so I get that stuff happens. You maybe get a better opportunity. Maybe something different happens. There's a host of things that could happen. Um,
They
and
also
there's a
just
comment in here.
completely like even with the even with not making that decision, like they just completely flushed out their wide receiver room, and I think that was
Yeah,
intentional. I
yeah,
don't
it
know.
was
I don't know the why behind it, but like I think that was intentional. Like they held on to Chris Olave, of course. Rashid Shaheed was on the exclusive rights. He's back for 2024. He'll be back for 2025, by the way, because he'll be restricted free agent. And then A.T. Perry, who they drafted, everybody else left. Everybody else is
yeah.
gone. And so, like, I think they really wanted their opportunity to be able to build out that room a little bit with players that are, kind of the new staff's players, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Mitchell, to answer your question, I'm not going to put up here because
Oh,
Ross and I will
yes.
probably listen. Yes, yes is the answer. So we'll leave that at that. Getting a lot of questions about Dallin Holker, and see how he
Hmm.
looked today. Yes, he did practice. I saw him catch something, and I saw him. He had a pass intended that was kind of not thrown well. That was a
Yeah,
Kellen
he had
Mond.
to kind of
No,
reach
no
for
shot
it.
at him. Tried to reach back around and make the circus catch, but look again. He's another guy that I think is going to be here and just needs to learn. And of course, I like his demeanor. I like his attitude. I think that he's somebody that just needs to catch on and learn. And think that's the big thing for all of these players is that you got to learn. You got to look at it we're going to talk about special teams. We're going to talk about all these things that are important. And so with Holker, not too much off of it, but again, it's day 2 and we didn't see a whole bunch of practice. And so I don't think that's like a huge tail off of somebody like him. But yeah, they all are good kids. And I can say that because I'm old as dirt now. So, but yeah, they all some good kids. Anything you saw out of Holker that you might have been,
the thing that I thought was interesting, because he didn't get a ton of opportunities, as you mentioned. He only got like a couple of targets, but the thing that I kind of noticed from him was the kind of different places where they had him lined up. When they were kind of in their like gun bunched, where you have like a triple, you have like 3 receivers over on the right side. I think I saw him in like 2 of the different spots that he could potentially line up. I saw him in line. I saw him kind of separated from the line of scrimmage a little bit. So the move part of his game is clearly very much a part of what they're expecting to see from him. So I think that was kind of the big takeaway that I have for him.
Yeah, and if as you develop more play action and do a lot of these things, I think it'll open up a lot of stuff. And so I think it'll be really telling. Thank you, Marquita. Really appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Making me feel like a practice. That's the goal. We've said that. We want you to know what we know. It's not some type of voodoo, something we want to withhold. We want you guys to know as much. As far as people that weren't there, it was just kind of detour for that is look, Jalen Ford, Josiah Iserum are dealing with some minor injuries, and it was actually Nick Underhill saying that he was having, or Jalen Ford, that he had a hernia surgery, and so he had that back on April 2nd, but he's going to be out for another couple of weeks. But they weren't there. Nathan Latu, or I say they weren't there. Ford was the only one not there. Josiah Iserum or Ezram.
Azir,
like Taliesin for longer. Azir, he was in the locker room, and we saw Latu and then Kool-Aid McKinstry. He was obviously out there. He was in the locker room. He wasn't out there on the field, but few things here and there. I don't think there should be any big deal that you make of the attendance wise, but I think it was probably expected in some aspects. But these guys, once they hit the field, hamstrings, tightness, different ways to adjust. It just happens. You're going to have these things that happen.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think there's anything too much. It doesn't sound like it's going to be anything that's going to keep, particularly the drafted guys, Aziram and Ford. It doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to be, lasting until training camp or anything like that. It's just some early stuff that you got to deal with. And sometimes that happens too as you're adjusting to the heat too, and all these other things. That's not necessarily the case with these guys, but like there's all those types of possibilities as well that could potentially lead to something happening and all that. Like, yeah, it's fine. I don't think there's anything too big you got to take away from it.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you, Hootie Jude. Appreciate it.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, man. Thank you for it. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. We really appreciate it. And so, there's a couple of them now. I'm going to tackle these two. Anybody that stood out on defense, and then Trajan Jeffcoat. That's a big one. He is out there. He's 76 is what he's wearing. So a couple of things. He was one that stood out a lot in special teams, and just the fact that he stood out was a big one. I saw him a lot on the special teams reps. You saw him too. Defensively, Christian Boyd had a pressure I saw, and then Rico Payton had a nice little pass breakup. Not a ton extra, I'd say, from it, because again, you're not able to really hit and do a lot of things. But those are a couple that I saw personally. And talk about Jeffcoat, man. And
oh my goodness, dude.
Anybody that you saw.
I mean, Jeffcoat is enormous, like absolutely enormous. It was incredible. Like seeing him, I told him, I went up to, we were talking to him, and I told him if kick returning was somehow my responsibility, and I saw big number 76 running towards me, I'm doing everything I can to get to the other side of the field and away from that guy, because he's humongous, and it was awesome. So it was cool to see him on special teams. We saw, and I know we'll dive into this, but we saw some interesting configurations of like what those player personnel positions look like and all those other things. So he was a big time standout for me. I thought that Christian Boyd was a standout to me. He had that pressure. He also came off the backside of an outside zone run that was going left, and he got back there for what would have easily been a tackle for a loss for him.
Yep.
If not, it would have been an incredible play by Jordan Mims to not get tackled in the backfield. But it was awesome. Like the way that he just kind of, he was hot knife through butter, everything like that. I think that there were some things about like his get off and stuff like that that might have been a little inconsistent in some cases. He was like off at the right times. In some cases, he was a little bit held up or whatever that might be. Some of that's probably just learning things and all that. That's totally fine. But he was a guy to where you could see, like, when he got off the ball, he's a lot more athletic than you think he's going to be at 6'2", 329 pounds. Like, a lot more athletic, moves a lot more fluidly than you expect. And his strength, I mean, those 38 bench reps were not an accident. Like, you can see how strong he is every rep.
Yeah, for sure. With Jeffcoat, with what you were talking, I was thinking of Bishop Bullwinkle.
Yes.
That's exactly the phrase. No.
That's
Oh
exactly right.
man. Yeah,
I
that's the type
saw
of thing.
I saw another pressure by Luke Brubaker or Brubaker. I'm not sure which one it is, but he's one of the Canadian guys that was in as a tryout. He was another one that ended up getting into the backfield on what would have been a sack on a pass that otherwise Spencer Rattler completed.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, overall, and it's going to be one of the things where everybody's got to remember too, like in camp sometimes, like especially these OTAs, mini camps and stuff, the offense typically looks way better than the defense does. And
Yeah,
then
that's
when we
true.
get into training camp, that's going to be a big deal. Jude, we talked about Spencer Rattler earlier. Not that I don't want to go back and talk about him. Mond, he was there on a tryout basis. Again, he was there. I think what I liked about you said this about Mon is he looks like he would be a starting NFL quarterback based off his building stuff. And look, he was really what I think I appreciated about him most is when they were talking about the plays, like when Janako was talking about the plays and stuff, he was sitting there reciting them, word for word, processing it mentally and helping Spencer Rattler out. And so I think that's a big tell for somebody like that. But nothing too crazy. And then again, check out earlier, we talked about Spencer Rattler. But we talked about the special teams. I got to catch up a little bit with Darren Rizzi, and because it's just fascinating. Like, I am enthralled with the new special teams rule now. It's just crazy. And so they had a couple of drills, and I get it. Some people watch special team drills at training camp, and it's like, I'd rather go watch paint dry. But for some of us, it matters. Special teams matters, right? Because if your special teams unit sucks, well, then there's a problem. And if it's good, you're like, I don't really notice. But they're working off of the new kickoff rule, and so what they were doing is they had like a wedge on one side, they're working on the right side, and then they're working on the left side, and so you basically had 3 attackers, or 3 from the cover team, and you had 3 from the return team, and then you had a returner. And so with the new rule, so what you're looking at from the guys who on the return team is you have 2 guys up front, and you're like on the 35-yard line, and the guy in the back is in the middle of those 2 guys, and he can't be he has to be above the 30-yard line. And so what's interesting is that there's a combination. Like, you had DBs with a defensive lineman, you had a tight end with some linebackers, you have a whole bunch of different makeups with these kick return teams. And the thing is, the Saints plan on trying everybody at this, right? Because they don't know what you're going to get on the other opposite side. But the interesting part is, you can't move until the ball is in the returner's hands. And what Rizzi was talking about is they want them to focus on the returner, not necessarily the blockers and stuff. And so, look, I think this is going to open up the game a little bit, but we also saw some people hustle, and it could lead to the same result too. But it's interesting about the pursuit. But I'm enthralled with what this new rule is going to be like. But it's cool to see some practice on it, because I know it doesn't seem like it would excite many.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I really enjoyed watching that. And I think the thing that was super interesting to me was a lot of people were, maybe concerned that returns would end up, getting, not having a return, or having the defense start so close to the offense, or the coverage team start so close to the return team, that it would cause issues with, how far the returner could possibly get. Most of the time we saw the returns get to the 20 to 25. That's kind of like where you would expect them to be with last year's rule. And it's where you expect them to kind of hit this year. The thing that's going to be really interesting is, how do you protect beyond your first level of coverage, right? Your immediate initial level of coverage. Because if all 10 players that are covering the kick end up pushing upfield all at the same play or all at the same rate, and the returner gets through 2 blockers or two tackle attempts over on the outside, there's nothing there. So it's going to be really interesting to see the strategy behind where, players end up dropping back and not pursuing as hard, so that they're kind of the last level of defense before the kicker and all these other things. And if maybe typically what you would have is on the outside of kick coverage are kind of the fastest guys. Think about like your gunners and punt return. Does that change? And do you try to get more of your speed into the middle of the field and then have your kind of reinforcements on the sideline so that nothing gets to the sideline and breaks open? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, and again, it's just a different makeup, and like I was asking Riz, is like, when they send out the return or the kick team, can you substitute? Can you do things? He's like, no, the matchup's going to be the matchup. So you might have a defensive lineman on a defensive back. You just don't know what it's going to be,
Yeah.
and so I think that's also a really hidden element. It's going to be pretty interesting. Mitchell asked about Shaheem Battle tryout. He was a tryout. NC State. He was a tryout. So a lot of the guys, they had 27 players that were tryouts, and they may sign a couple. It's obviously one of those things. Yes, we are ready for the schedule release as well. That's supposed to be Thursday. This is another one that came up. It was asked about Bub Means. He left early because of cramps. I don't know about the out of shape thing, but I think it's typical of getting cramps. You know what I mean? Like, I remember people were a little bit upset because, like, not upset, but like Michael Thomas last year in camp, he was going so hard that his hamstring kind of acted up. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense because he goes like 1,000 on every single rep. So
Right.
I don't know that I'd be too concerned about it, because he was out there today doing just fine. So I don't think there's any big deal.
Yeah, and what Dennis Allen said was that he left early with a cramp on Friday, and so he's got to get in shape, not that he was out of shape. So what he's referencing there is conditioning. And so it's just conditioning stuff. Like when you're a player that's coming from Pittsburgh and then having to, even though he's played in Louisiana before, but when you're a player coming from Pittsburgh and then you show up in Louisiana to play football outside, you're probably going to cramp up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably going to happen. And so he said he chugged like 6 pickle juices today before he went out on the field, and he had no problems out there today at all. So I just want to be careful about like is he out of shape question. That's a different conversation. It's really just about conditioning and being ready for the humidity, the heat, like all those other things.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's a big deal. And again, they're not going to be practicing in that like Louisiana heat, obviously,
Right.
maybe just for the other stuff, but OTAs and minicamp, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. And I don't think it's going to be a crazy thing. They just gotta get to it, and they're going to have nicks and bruises and all these sorts of things that are that happen. So, let's see. Kyle Sheets. I mean, he was out there and I saw him. I don't know that he did anything spectacular, you know what I mean? But he was out there working, and I saw him catch a few passes. And again, he's just like him and Mason Tipton. I see them both doing some stuff. But it's just one of those that, I guess if you're looking at it, Bub Means stole the show. I thought Jermaine Jackson did pretty well overall today, catching that pass where he's falling to the ground and hearing, something about his stature. That was kind of pretty fun and stuff. But yeah, I just, some of these guys, it's just the one day. And of course, this is the only day we get access. So it's a 3-day rookie mini camp. So they had it yesterday. They have it tomorrow. And so, we only get to see this one sample size, but I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of this stuff happen as we get closer to the OTAs, which honestly is less than 2 weeks away. So it's coming quick.
Football back, baby.
Yeah, well, and since we're talking about Sheets, I mean, look, this is another one that's fair. It's too early, but what's the wide receivers that are going to make this roster? Obviously, we know it's Shaheed, we know it's Olave and A.T. Perry, but are they going to keep 6? Are they going to keep 5? Who would go in right now?
I have no idea. It is indeed way too early. I would say, I would have to put Cedric Wilson in there. I would imagine Cedric Wilson ends up being there. Just big slot guy. Bub Means probably makes it, even though he'll tell you he'll tell you he's not sure yet. Like Bub Means himself was like, look, I haven't made this roster yet. Like I'm a New Orleans Saint, but I'm not a New Orleans Saint yet. I got work to do. everything like that. And I loved hearing that.
Yeah.
So I'd probably put both of those guys on that list. And then beyond that, I have no idea. Like I couldn't throw a sixth dart. I could throw a fourth and a fifth dart though. And for me, it's Cedric Wilson and Bub Means.
Yeah. And
And
I
that's no
think,
disrespect to the other guys, just we haven't seen them yet.
yeah, I mean, Stanley Morgan, I think special teams is
Mhm.
going to be a big part, and maybe being a return game. That's another one. Equinemius St. Brown, look, he's a strong blocker. And I think in this
Yep.
particular offense, that's going to be something big for him. And so,
Jawan Jennings, like,
yeah, very Juwan Jennings like, and man, that was I wanted Juwan Jennings so
yeah,
bad this
yeah.
offseason, even before he blew up against in the Super Bowl, and that was like, okay, he's gonna get paid, but that's a thing. So I think outside of that, it's gonna depend on the makeup, and of course, I think one of these guys are gonna end up being a practice squad. Whether it's
Mhm.
Tipton or Sheets, if they can't make the roster, of course, I don't want to diminish that or Jermaine
No,
Jackson, but
no, just haven't
keep
seen
an
him yet.
eye
But
out on him for sure. Uh, Bub Means you don't block, you don't get the rock. That's true.
that's the
That's
rule.
right. Yep. Kevin, he's talking about Christian Boyd, effective Christian Boyd coming in on Penning, because they're former college teammates. Yes, actually, we said this on a previous show, but they actually work out in the off season together,
Mhm.
work out in the summer. So it's not like they lost touch or just haven't been in touch. So again, everything we've heard about Trevor Penning has been promising and good as far as his off season. I even saw a photo of the offensive line doing some bow fishing recently,
Yep,
which is pretty
that's
cool.
right.
And Trevor looks like he might have I don't know, he looked like, I don't want to say slimmed down, but
Little
he just
svelte,
looked a little bit different. Yeah.
little svelte. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna find out because when mini camps here, of course, it's not mandatory or OTAs first,
Mhm.
voluntary, then
Yep.
minicamp. Minicamp's the 13th through the 15th, and we're not sure on the logistics of either of those yet, but they're not going to be at the facility in Metairie. And
Mhm.
going back to what we talked about earlier with the renovations, they're actually going to put permanent bleachers in now at the facility in Metairie, and this is only supposed to be a 1-year thing. So they made it really clear that the plan is to come back to Metairie next year for
Mhm.
training camp. This is only supposed to be a 1-year thing. I'd be inclined to believe him, right? I just
Yeah.
don't think there's anything there that they say,
Especially
oh, we
all this
want to do that.
renovating work that they're doing. Like,
$12 million into this project, and we're like, yeah, we don't need that crap. No, like, come
that
on, buddy, come
would
on.
be wild.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Flavor Dave asked about Kyle Hergel. Well, I mean,
Left
he's
guard.
left guard, starting left
Mhm.
guard, and so
Started
again,
left guard in rookie mini camps.
in rookie minicamp, yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
important caveat. But of course, again, we said this before, you just can't really judge the offensive linemen and
Mhm.
defensive linemen because there's no real contact. And so, like I even said like the other days, Carl Granderson looked great because he got 5 sacks, but there's no chipping, there's no blitz pick, there's not a lot of things that happen. And so
Mhm.
take that with a grain of salt. But I am interested to see Kyle Hergel. I
Yeah,
really
me
like
too.
him. I thought he's really intriguing. This is the fact that the CFL drafted him third overall,
Third
and that was
overall,
pretty
yeah.
crazy. And so, man, they might have found him something, but the competition's there. I like
Yeah.
it.
I thought he moved well
Ooh,
today too, that I really
uh,
liked.
yeah, I think so too. This is your guy. You want to kind of talk
Yeah.
about him, but it's a great segue. Not this one, but let's see. Jalen Jones. It was a
Yeah.
quarterback listed as
Yeah.
a quarterback, but he's playing wide receiver. Talk about Jalen Jones.
Yeah, and look, I'm not about to jump on a hype train here or anything like that, but it was just like so interesting. He was so interesting to watch, and it's not often that you go to a rookie minicamp and you come out talking about one of the tryout guys that's
Yeah,
fresh to the NFL. You'll leave sometimes talking about one of the tryout guys that's maybe a veteran, and it's like, oh yeah, he's still got it, like whatever, all these other things. But it's not very often that you leave talking about one of the tryout guys. But Jalen Jones was really interesting. So when he was at Charlotte, he was a quarterback, but like super athletic, all this other stuff. And now he came in, he's trying out at wide receiver. And the thing that I loved about watching him was all the different things that he did, because he did just about everything but throw a football.
yeah,
He ran routes, he caught passes, he blocked, he was on kickoff coverage, and was one of the 7 kick returners that we saw the team try out and rotate as well. And so just really interesting. Like, here's the thing. Any guy that's showing up as a tryout player has a big time, very steep uphill battle. Okay. It's tough. It's really, really hard. But if you want to maximize your opportunity, have multiple paths to the roster. And I just named 5 that this guy came in and showed up with. That was really cool. Like, that was cool to see. And especially knowing that he comes in with the quarterback mentality, the quarterback knowledge of the game too, which we hear Taysom talk about all the time, how much that helps him when he's doing other things.
Mm.
I think that's something that maybe is really unique about Jalen Jones. I don't know that he makes the roster. I don't know that he makes the roster here in New Orleans. Maybe he gets an opportunity somewhere else, whatever it might be. But I'll tell you what, for sure, like, if he does enough things, he's going to be on the short list for a phone call if they need him, at the very worst, if they needed him somewhere, like they need another special teamer or something like that. I thought that he was the guy that maybe most boosted his profile for me as an analyst and as a viewer of Minicamp today, because of the interesting amount of things and variety of things that he was doing.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. If these guys have a successful, tryout, they may find themselves on the roster. I mean, this is just something that typically happens. I forget who tried out last year and made it. There's a couple of them, and
Yeah, there
it
were a couple
eludes me
players
right
that
now.
did.
But this happens every year, and so you might see again the bottom third of your roster, actually bottom like 5% of your roster. There's so much fluidity there and change that it won't be surprising to see some of these guys, and hopefully they get a fair shake. But the biggest thing is be available, stay
Mhm.
healthy, and learn and just do your thing. That's the big thing. And so that's really about all you can do. Kevin asked if there's any disappointment. I don't think there was any disappointing things for me. The only disappointment I had was not seeing like Charlie Smith and Matt Hayball kick.
Yeah, I agree
That
with
was
that.
that was the only thing. But I did talk to Charlie Smith after practice, so really solid dude, man. He's
Mhm.
awesome to talk to. It's funny, and he said he's been here 4 weeks. He said he's not driving yet because of the whole wrong side of the road thing, which I thought was so funny. And I was like, you know what? I didn't think about that because I asked him if he's seen much in New Orleans and stuff. But one of the cool things I asked him and just talked about the kickoff rule and such is, his experience in the past with soccer ball and all that stuff. He said it's actually going to be easier for him to kick right on these new kickoff rules because that's what he
Mhm.
did when he was
Oh,
playing that. And I thought
that's right.
really
Yeah.
interesting. He's like, so some kickers is just boot the heck out of it. He can hopefully precision it, you know what I'm saying? So I thought that was pretty interesting out of Charlie Smith. And so he's leaning on some of his teammates. He said Zach Wood, Groupie, and Headley have been great to him. But it's cool to see some of these guys for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to look back to see if maybe I could figure out who it was that tried out last year and got signed. I thought maybe it was Sage Dockstetter, but he was signed the year before last and then came back on a tryout this year. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah, we find out.
yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know, man. I think that I'm so glad that we got to see football today.
I mean, fair. Yeah.
Like, I just loved being back out there and watching it. And like, I really want to drive home to for folks that don't get the opportunity to like be out there. And so we want to do everything we can to make you feel like you have been, like John was saying earlier and Marquita was mentioning. I just think that it's like one of those things that was so fun to watch today was the intensity. Like, there was just a
Mm,
level of intensity that I don't think I anticipated going out there for a rookie minicamp. And it's not because it doesn't mean anything, because for these players, it could be their whole life. Like, it'd be a life-changing thing out there. And it is a life-changing thing, no matter what the result of it might be. Um, but seeing like the intensity and just the way that the coaching staff really treated this, I think was probably my favorite part of the day.
yeah,
Because it's just so like, I can't wait to see this coaching staff, this offensive coaching staff out there with the roster, the teams, everything like that. Like, I think we're gonna see practice and everything like that in a very, very different light this year.
for sure. Scott Lashley was one of the players for
Scott
rookie minicamp.
Lashley.
He
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah,
he
yeah.
signed. And I also looked at it and I saw Rashard Matthews name on there. It's like,
That's right.
I was so weird about him just up and retiring this now that it's there. Alex Quevedo was another one a long time ago,
Uh-huh.
and there's a few of them that have tried
Yeah.
out during rookie mini camp. You know, and so I mean, it's not uncommon to see some of these guys do that, but
Hmm.
it's just depends.
Making
You
it
know,
all the way
one.
to the roster or practice squad is the challenge. That's the real challenge for them. But
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like I see Josh Black on here. I saw Josh Andrews from 2022. I mean, there's some vets that try out. And another little thing that to pass along is some of the rookies from last year were in attendance. So like you mentioned Jordan Mims early, but Jordan Mims is out here, Michael
mhm.
Jacobson, Fayon Hicks, John Wright. There was somebody else I'm forgetting too. It'll come to me. But anyways, I actually asked Mims, I'm like, kind of like the logistics were behind that. And, they said something about the NFL experience. If you don't have such as many, games
Oh
experience for the
yeah.
NFL, that you have the option to. And for him, he said it was a no brainer. He's like, I wanted to be here because I want to show the new offensive coaches what I can do. And so
Yep.
I think Mims had some pretty good moments today too. He's
He
using
did.
as a work as a returner. And Mims was a guy that we talked about the running back room that I was like, he's one that I really want to see more of. And the Saints were really high on him in the college scouting process and snatched him up after Buffalo and such. So again, that's just kind of sometimes some of those things. Oh, Mark Evans was the other one, but he wasn't
Yeah.
practicing today. So that was the other one I was thinking about. So
Yeah.
for sure. So
I'll mention another defender that stood out to me a couple of times. No, like big moments, but you could just kind of see him moving differently, and it makes perfect sense. Was Roderick Teamer. He's another one of
mm,
those veterans that was here on a tryout. You can just kind of see him move differently, handle himself differently, carry himself differently, all that stuff
yeah.
amongst the guys that are like getting their first NFL exposure. And so he was another one that stood out to me. I don't remember him making like a huge play or anything like that, but looked good in coverage. Read things well, moved well. But I think the biggest thing for me was just kind of like the demeanor that he brought in. Like you could tell that he was walking with a lot of experience.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, this is a time where you have to look at it and say, some of these guys, this might be their only exposure, and it's unfortunate because they won't give up, but this is a small sample size to try to make a something of themselves, and you hope the best for a lot of these guys
Hmm.
because there are some really nice guys there, and this is a hard profession to stay in, and you got the UFL and other leagues like CFL and stuff, and hopefully, well, not the AFL, arena football league's not doing so hot. They're probably fold up, but
Damn, already?
it's unfortunate. Yeah, I saw
Oh
like the
man,
Philadelphia Soul already like suspended their operations. Like they just started. What are you talking about? So
woof, man.
it's a big mess for sure. All right, let's see. Let's get a couple more of these questions before we roll out. Ross, he says, since Kubiak runs an offense like Shanahan, do you see them using Shaheed in a Debo Samuel type role? We've talked about this
Hmm.
because we talked about the concept of your guy in the draft,
Malik, Malachi Corley, yeah.
Malachi Corley, and I asked the question and said, couldn't Rashid Shaheed be that guy in it? So why don't you hash that back out?
Yeah, I think Rashid Shaheed could have a Debo Samuel like role. I think they're two very different receivers, like
Yep.
vastly different receivers. Debo Samuel runs through guys. Rashid Shaheed runs around guys. That's the basic way that or runs past guys probably is more appropriate. And so I think that they're very different. And so I think that like when I'm trying to think about how a Rashid Shaheed is used in a Shanahan like system. Uh, a Debo Samuel esque role in terms of versatility and in terms of like the dynamics of deployment, be deployed out of the backfield, out of the slot, out wide, like jet sweep motion, split zone, all this other stuff, like all these different things that you could do with them. And what I just did there was just rattle off like a bunch of places that a player would start at the snap. That's all that was. It's just that's where I think you could probably see a Debo like role would be through there. But him being Debo Samuel is a long shot for me just because like they're just better at different things. I mean, Rashid
Yeah.
Shaheed can do things that Debo Samuel can't. Debo Samuel can do things that Rashid Shaheed can't. But I think from a deployment standpoint, to where you can have him lined up out wide, running a go route or a deep post, and then have him come back and then deploy him from out of the um, backfield. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think those are the places that you'd probably see him. I think like Jalen Waddle maybe is a good example in terms of the different ways and the different places that Mike McDaniel uses him. I think Tyreek Hill is a player that you look at in terms of like the deep threat, deep speed stuff. But Jalen Waddle, I feel like it's moved around a little bit more. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
out of my mind, but I feel like he gets
No,
moved around a little bit more. And so I think maybe that's probably like a better comp for how Rashid Shaheed would look in it holistically in a role in a Shanahan style offense versus Debo Samuel, who relies a lot more on the physicality and all those other things.
for
So I
sure.
think that like I would put Shaheed there, and then I would put like Taysom Hill in the Kyle Juszczyk category, for
Yeah.
instance.
For sure. And speaking of that, no, not that one. I was going to back up a little bit because the question came up about Kamara and Jamal Williams because I don't
Hmm.
think we've really talked a lot about Jamal Williams. And I know, again, he was one of those guys that said that, reported a couple of months ago that he was in the plans. I mean, he is in the plans. And so I guess my question is, what do they need to do? And how can this offense, like, what do they need to do to get Jamal Williams going? And how can he thrive in this offense?
Yeah, I think it's specifying his role within the offense, and so that should be easy with this style of offense. The wide zone offense is not going to zone run 100% of the time. You're still going to have some of those man and gap scheme runs. Or just as a quick refresher on that, in case you missed the last episode, zone run offensive linemen are moving off the football to go and block a gap, an area of the field, kind of like how a zone coverage defender covers an area of the field, while man run blocks the guy in front of him, blocks the guy
Mhm.
closest to them, basically. And then you'll see like double teams and stuff like that, that kind of vary all that up, but that's the nuance of it. I'm just talking about like the basic fundamentals of it.
Right.
So you're still going to have those man concepts because you still have to be varied in your offense. You can't just zone run, zone run, zone run, zone run, because then everybody finds out what it is that you're doing, and then it limits your selection big time. And even when you think about Taysom Hill and Taysom Hill's role is a power run role, which is a man blocking scheme, right? It's go out there and punch the guy across from you as hard as you can with both of your hands in their chest and try to move them as best as you can while the big guy runs behind you. And I think that's where Jamal Williams factors in. But the thing that's really nice about Jamal Williams is that he can run that and have that physical run presence in between, but he can also get outside the tackles. He has the speed to get the edge, and he can catch out of the backfield. And so I think that it's about specifying his role as like the main man component, field, short area of the field or short game situation type of runner, but then vary him up to break the tendency every now and then. And I think that that's how you maximize Jamal Williams in a way that could be really unique.
And shameless plug, but if you go back to yesterday's show, Ross explained what the wide zone offense is. And
Mhm.
I asked him, I was like, could you explain this like I'm five? And so anybody that wants to know more football and just kind of like what we're talking about, go back to yesterday's episode and check that out. But just want to plug Ross and all the work he does off that too. So, but
Thanks,
I
man.
think Jamal, yeah, you're welcome, buddy. With Jamal, man, I think they have a good vision for him. And so again, we just want to see it come to life. I think that's a big thing. And it was funny because Tyron was talking about he got asked by RG3 about that final touchdown. And of course, everybody said the same thing, that Jamal's like one of the most selfless teammates,
Yep.
works the hardest, and they wanted to reward the guy. And so, I mean, it sucks for Arthur Smith, but that's what happens, I guess, sometimes. Uh, I'm not gonna
Classless.
ignore this. Yeah, classless. KP, we actually had talked about this earlier. And so for those who don't know, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're gonna get out of here soon. I put up all the chapters for everybody, so you
Mhm.
can go back and find what you need for it. So hopefully you can. So that's a big thing. Logan asked about Isaiah Major. I didn't see too much from him. You know what I mean? Like I know he's there and stuff. And again, just from the defensive side, you see some things. I'm trying to remember which number was it. It was 52, I think, that was doing most of the work as far as calling the plays.
Yep.
That
And
was
that
major.
was and that
That
was
was
major.
major. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I'm thinking about it, but yeah,
That's
he
okay.
was kind of doing the captain and the defense type thing. So
Mhm.
he was
And
playing the mic
he was a
sevens.
big shield guy in the return game too. And so as a blocker, I mean, sorry. So he was one of the guys that was like blocking and doing some protection for the returners in those kick return drills as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, anybody wants a touchdown when to play the Falcons. Of course we know this. This is it is what it is. All right, Ross, it's getting late, and we probably could rattle on and stuff, but just a few things that we've talked about in rookie minicamp for one day, and just imagine what happens when training camp gets here, and the
Can't
3-day
wait.
minicamp, and OTAs next week, or not next week, but in 2 weeks. But yeah, what you got going on Locked On? Always want to give you a chance for that, and of course, if you guys aren't reading Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints, go there and check out some of our stuff that we put out. If you want to know anything else about rookie minicamp observations, Spencer Rattler, Clint Kubiak, Darren Rizzi, The Sky is Blue, all of those things are on Saints News Network. But what's coming up for you?
We literally wrote about everything. Yeah, so I just put up a new quick episode, like a 20-minute episode, just kind of giving like my main like 6 takeaways from training camp. A lot of what you heard here today. And then I also, so Monday, what I'll do is kind of go through and just kind of dig a little bit deeper. I want to go into Andrew Janoko's presence, and I want to go into a little bit more of the scheme conversations of some of the things that we saw from the offense. Here are some of those things that you'll see that we already saw that look new. And so just getting a little bit more nitty gritty, in depth X's and O's on all that. So that'll be my Monday Locked On show for sure. Sweet. What you got coming up?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I think there's some things to look at. Yeah, I gotta process some of this rookie stuff, and of course, just kind of look at just the holistic point of view. What we're looking at, it's about to be schedule heavy, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is I think that's really where I'm gonna put my focus on. Is I wonder how many primetime games this team is gonna have. I think Sean Payton coming back home should be a primetime game. I think that's an automatic one. They play Dallas in Dallas. Dallas is America's team. They always pull the ratings. That could be a primetime game. Derek Carr playing against the Raiders. That could be a primetime game. That would make all the sense in the world. So I don't know. I'm not the NFL. I don't make the schedules, but I hope that the Saints get a few more primetime games this year, but I don't know. I wouldn't count on it. And so a lot of noon kicks last year. I remember that one year they had nothing but like late kicks. I was like, oh God, I hate life because of that. So I don't like late kicks. I just, it's not my favorite, but bunch of noon kicks, but we'll find out. And obviously keep tuned with us. Sometimes we get those leaks and all that fun stuff. And so we'll pass those along, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the schedule as it comes out or when it comes out, or talk about all the fun things, but great chance to get on the road and plan some things. And so it'll be good. It'll be good.
Yep. Looking forward
to it, guys. Man. Yes. Awesome. Well, dang, I can't believe we're already over an hour and all that fun stuff. Guys, we can't thank you enough for your support. I mean, it really means the world to us. And, again, I'm going to keep saying, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's how we continue to grow. And look, we're not backed by some fancy sponsors. We're not doing anything crazy, like, you know what I'm saying? But we really appreciate the support and just taking your time out of your day just to support us two guys. And we're just normal, everyday guys. And we just love what we do. And so we want to do this for you guys and Who Dat Nation and anybody else that can benefit from it and hopefully inspire some people. That's the other part of it. Definitely. Because, we again, go back to some past episodes to give you some good career advice and stuff like that too. Well, I don't know, say good, but some career advice. One of those things.
You have to let us know if it's good or not.
Right. Yeah. That's in the eyes of the beholder, right? So shrug. Anyway,
John said we're out here making careers.
No, I did not say that. No. All right, that's going to do it for us. Another episode of Second and Saints in the books. On behalf of Ross Jackson, I'm John Hendricks signing out. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Go kiss,
love you,
hug
Mom.
on your moms. For sure. Y'all have a good night, guys. Thanks. Be good people.